Welcome, everyone. If I've learned anything the past 3 years here in India and the years prior to that, teaching English to speakers of other languages, it is this, that as a teacher, I need to keep learning, trying new methodologies, and allowing my students to be the focus, the very center of the classroom. I'm Vicki Hale. I'm an English language fellow in Visakhapatnam at St. Joseph's College for Women since 2019. And I've taught many levels, many subjects and ages. And so I know from experience that no matter if they're intermediates, first year degree students, third year or postgraduates, they are all going to one day be in the real world. And what employers are looking for today has not changed much in the first 2 decades of the 21st century. The 4 C's, we call them: communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. So we all need to re-emphasize, reintegrate, reactivate these characteristics into our teaching. I want you to listen to this quote for a moment. This is a direct quote. With the quickly changing employment landscape and global ecosystem, it is becoming increasingly critical that children not only learn, but more importantly, learn how to learn. Education, thus, must move towards less content and more towards learning about how to think critically and solve problems, how to be creative, multidisciplinary, and how to innovate, adapt, and absorb new material in novel and changing fields. Pedagogy must evolve to make education more experiential, holistic, integrated, inquiry-driven, discovery-oriented, learner-centered, discussion-based, flexible, and of course, enjoyable, unquote. That is a direct quote from the 2020 National Education Policy from the Government of India, in case you didn't recognize it. Then a few pages later, in a list of 22 fundamental principles that, quote, will guide both the education system at large, as well as individual institutions within, unquote, right in the very middle, surrounded by wonderful traits and mannerisms and goals, are 2 very important attributes that must not be ignored and are thus the basis of this webinar. Quote, promoting multilingualism and the power of language in teaching and learning, and life skills such as communication, cooperation, teamwork, and resilience, unquote. So I want to ask you to allow the promotion of multilingualism to be the unspoken given of our webinar. We love multilingualism, but we're not focusing on that tonight. And permit the power of language with all its features, communication, cooperation, teamwork, to be our aim. Get ready to dispel boredom and put on the hat of activity leader, facilitator. We want to take you on a journey of re-envisioning your teaching approaches. Open your minds and your hearts to teachers who not only love what they do, but desire to share and impart their wisdom and reasonings. Our 3 speakers, Mina Gavell, an English language fellow currently stationed in Kenya, Shannon Smith, also an English language fellow in Vijayawada at Maristella College, and Thomas Krall, also in Vijayawada. They bring to the platform years of training, teaching, and trial and error. So to earn the certificate, please fill out the brief feedback form at the end of each session. And if you attend all 3 sessions and fill this out, we will be happy to send you a certificate of participation in this webinar. Yeah. She happens to be in the US right now, but just for a short period of time, and she'll be going back to Kenya. She has also worked in Central Asia, always promoting learner-centered practices and meaningful ways of engaging. From secondary students to university students to training teachers. She is all about that word enjoy and enjoyable. And especially when it comes to education. I first met her a few years ago, and she just very willingly agreed to join us, to share her vast knowledge and help us to have fun while we're all learning. So over to you, Mina.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful opening and fabulous introduction. I'm very happy to be here. Yes, when you sent me, you mentioned that you had this going on. I was all about joining. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you everyone for being here. This is very exciting. I wish I could be there in person, but I am not for many reasons. But I have been, I was with Vicki in New Delhi and enjoyed myself very much there for the brief time that we were there. So today I will be talking about interactive learning. And you'll notice that there's kind of an emphasis on active here. I always stick this in my slides. We are recording. All right, so I thought we'd start with just kind of a little brain exercise or warm up. I have a multiple choice question here for us. Teaching is like A, filling a bucket, B, driving a car, C, lighting a fire, or D, something else entirely. So please go ahead and use the chat and put your answer in. So for example, if you said A, and then you should also say why. If you choose D, you should complete the analogy. I don't know, teaching is like baking a cake, perhaps, but then tell us why. So I'll give you a moment to put your answer into the chat. You can just put A, B, C, or D, although if you put D, complete it. And also just a brief explanation. Why do you see that analogy? Why do you think it is like baking a cake or driving a car, whichever you think it is? This will just give us a little bit of understanding and kind of a nice perspective of these different ways of teaching. So far I see B and C, and I'm curious to know more. These different ideas here. Oh, we've got 2 C's now. So why is it like driving a car, or why is it like lighting a fire? What's the similarity? Oh, okay, so C, because it has lasting impacts. Okay. Oh, now we're really getting going now. Okay. D, oh, sharing and knowledge. Very nice. Teaching for me is like trying to change a recipe for this. Oh, I like that. So cooking, but with some like personal alterations. Getting a new computer, learning the ropes, and then sharing the oh, I like that. Excellent. Same vegetable, the same way will be boring. Absolutely agreed. I like that analogy. Maybe next time I will include that. Oh, inspiration here. Teaching is a way of life. Transferring knowledge. Very good. A, creating a mold for somebody to fill the clay of knowledge and giving them a proper shape. Oh, that's very poetic. We have some creative participants I can see. Excellent. I'll give this about 30 more seconds if you'd like to put in your idea and why, because we are filling or teaching a knowledge. Very good. So kind of filling up. Okay, I'm going to move on. Of course, you can continue to, passion. Oh, that's a big part of it.
Oh, a roller coaster
ride. Roller coaster ride. That's true. Woo! I love it, Irene. I think I know Irene. Filling the bucket, we need to fill our mind with knowledge. There's no boundary. That's why lighting a fire. Very interesting. Okay. Feel free to continue. I'm going to move on. Thank you for sharing your ideas. So this is interesting to me. And then also the poll that Vicky did, I thought there were some interesting things to know about this audience, that we have some very experienced teachers here, mostly it seems like. Teaching is like baking. And that none of you do 100% lecture in your classes. That was very enlightening and also, I don't know, reassuring, I think, as well. So good to see. Okay, nice to know about this group that we're working with today and tomorrow and the next day. So today, to be a little more specific about what's going on, I'm going to explain what I mean by interactive teaching, because it is a term that's out there and has some different definitions. We'll talk a little bit about rationale and goals, and then hopefully this will be appealing since most people are looking for methodology. We'll talk about some useful strategies. All right, so what I'm talking about in terms of interactive, and that this transfer of information is a two-way kind of thing. So the information goes two ways, dialogue, knowledge, they go two ways. So not just from teacher to student, but back from student to the teacher as well. So this is like a two-way street, but actually, as you'll notice, there's actually 3 arrows here, because there is actually a third kind of relationship here, and that is student to student. And we need to not underappreciate the value of student to student knowledge transfer as well. That there are many more students than teachers. And so if we can harness that interaction as well, then we're really being effective in making the most of our classroom time. Interactive here, I'm also referring to a very dynamic process here. And if you're wondering, what exactly does dynamic mean? If you go to Google and Google the word dynamic, this is literally what comes up from Oxford Dictionary. And so when we're talking about a process or system, such as education, then we see it's characterized by constant change, activity, or progress. And so the way we teach, our teaching practice is not something static. It is something that's constantly in development, as is the process of learning. It's constantly changing. It's a progress. And then there is also the second definition that is used to describe people. And I thought this is also very appropriate because dynamic describes a person positive in attitude, full of energy and new ideas. And I think that's appropriate for us as well when we're talking about our learners and also when we're talking about our teachers. So you might have noticed that I have this active part in different colors to kind of highlight and call attention to the active aspect of this term, interactive. Ooh, sorry, I just looking at the chat. Oh, I like this. No matter which side is turned on, it is always stable. I didn't think that's brilliant. Thank you, Anita. All right, so when we talk about this activity, I'm referring to both mental activity and physical activity. So mental activity is basically we're doing something that students aren't just passive and sitting there and possibly falling asleep. So their minds are active, and this may they may be activated through maybe some kind of highlighting activity. Maybe they are writing a response. Maybe they're orally responding to questions or engaging in some sort of discussion. There are other ways too, but just some examples of the ways that we can mentally activate our students and make sure that they're not just there and maybe mentally somewhere else or perhaps brain dead. And then physical activity refers to any sort of kinesthetic or manipulative activity. So maybe they're getting up and moving their bodies, walking around, or perhaps they're just using their hands to do something. It runs the whole gamut. I also thought I would include this definition here. I like the way that Robertson paraphrases Princeton's definition. It's any type of instructional method that engages students in their learning process and requires meaningful, relevant, and authentic learning activities, as well as requiring students to think about what they are doing, metacognition. So I like this because the attention it calls to meaningfulness, that what students are doing is relevant. Often, I feel from my own experience as a student in the classroom, that what's being learned doesn't really have much personal relevance. Why are you learning? Because there's to a test or a grade, and then what comes after that is really unclear. And then also this aspect of metacognition, meaning that students understand what they're learning, why they're learning, how they're learning. Again, it's not a passive process where information is just going in, because that's not how learning happens, actually. So rationale. There's a lot of rationale here. If we go to theory, so we're not looking at students as buckets that need to be filled, because students are not empty buckets. They're not empty minds. And there's a lot of theory that supports that. So Freire talks about the banking concept. The banking concept is basically where we just fill the students with knowledge, pack it all in there, and then they're good to go. But this does not work. So Farah's done a bit talking about that, but some studies that Wyman did I thought were very interesting. As a lecturer, he found that after 15 minutes of lecture, students were only retaining 10% of the information that they were getting. So that's kind of a short-term result. But then even after a year, looking at these students, after 1 year of content in their fields, they only had a beginner level of understanding. And you would think after a year that students would be starting to approach some expert level. They had a year of this banking, all this knowledge putting in, and yet they still only had a very beginner level understanding of their different fields. And this was done in different areas. And so Wyman kind of sums it up with this quote here, that the traditional lecture is simply not successful in helping most students achieve mastery of fundamental concepts. Pedagogical approaches involving more interactive engagement of students show consistently higher gains. So this is kind of like the underlying, I think, rationale of all of this. So that's the theory. And then more from a kind of just a personal, my own knowledge kind of approach. I have been a student in lectures, and I've also been a teacher in different kinds of classrooms, including classrooms that were intended to be lecture-based classrooms. And I have to say that I've never given an entirely lecture-based class because I don't like it, and I don't think it works. And this is what I have found. That an interactive approach supports what Vicky was talking about in our opening, this acquisition of 21st century skills. So these are the skills that we need. And so interactivity supports that, whereas lecture alone does not. We also have much greater learner interest and motivation in the classroom when there is an interactive approach. Far few students sleeping in the class. And then I think what's most important, because this is what we're talking about in terms of results, is that we have a greater transfer of skills and knowledge to the real world. And this is most important. If we also look at this from kind of a Bloom's taxonomy approach, if we just go with lecture only activates these bottom 2 tiers. Students have to remember or note take, and they have to understand what they're hearing in a lecture. And these other things that happen don't happen until there's some sort of assessment often. And so we're just going from putting in all this information, and suddenly students have to do something with it under conditions where they will receive a grade. And so this just is not conducive to learning or to transfer of knowledge and skills. And I'm speaking from experience when I say this. My second fellowship in Uzbekistan, I was at a university teaching methodology, which tended to be done from a lecture approach with some limited practical experience in the classroom. And I was working with those teachers in their 4th years. And then I continued to be in touch with them as they were going into their jobs. And they were saying that despite everything, they had all of this knowledge. They could tell you about all of these theories and famous people in the field, but they still felt like going into their jobs, they had no idea what to do in the classroom. And so that's a real problem. And it wasn't just there. I've talked to teachers and other similar ones, but that was a very personal connection I had. I do want to make a side note about movement in the classroom and just give a bit of rationale. So this is considered a subset of active learning, so it comes under active learning. It's useful because it generates interest and relieves boredom. It's hard to be bored when you're moving around, kind of impossible. But it also takes different learning styles and multiple intelligence theory into account. Learning styles are something that are still debated if they are actually something innate or simply preference. But regardless of what you believe, people like to learn in different ways and just
Mina,
better in different
just a
ways.
moment, please. Let me interrupt you. I, because we're sharing the screen, I can't mute these people. So
Oh,
I need to ask them to please mute themselves right now. Ampa,
okay.
okay,
I think
thank you.
you're good. Okay. Oh, you know
Sorry.
why? Because you're not a co-host anymore.
Oh,
Oh, wait, yes,
okay.
you are. You're still a host. I'm just
still
lying.
a host,
Okay.
I think, but because the names are on the side, I don't have the mute button.
Oh,
Oh, if I put it on gallery, I do. Okay, sorry.
okay.
All right. I won't
No
interrupt you
problem.
next time. I'll put on gallery.
No.
Okay. Always learning.
No, I'm glad we have it sorted.
Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
we're always learning. So yeah, we're appealing to differences in learning styles and intelligence by incorporating some aspect of movement. Kind of scientifically based, it's, I thought, very interesting to note that the part of the brain that is responsible for processing movement also processes learning. So when we activate that part of the brain for movement, then we're also activating the part of the brain that kind of monitors and processes learning. So I thought that was really it was very interesting. And then finally, I think everybody can probably relate to this, that we can improve our focus and our ability to organize and retain ideas through a bit of movement. That's my lovely husband bringing me coffee. Thank you. Because I'm not moving, so I must use coffee to increase my focus. All right, so when we're talking about this, we have some goals for this approach. And if everything goes well, we will have students who want to learn. I think this is kind of the basis for success in education. If we have students who don't want to learn, we cannot make them learn. And so kind of lighting that initial fire, that desire to learn. We also want students who understand the relevance of what they're learning. So if you ask them, okay, you just did this chapter on whatever, why is this important? They don't just say, well, because there's a test on it. They actually know why this information is useful in their field, how it applies, how they're going to use it. Maybe it's the background, maybe it's something they're in opposition to, maybe this is something that will enhance something else, but they understand why. When it's time, these students will know what to do. They will be able to say, yeah, okay, this is the situation. I know what to do. And ultimately, we will have students who can succeed in some way. Earlier, I had that quote from Wyman, and it said that lecture-based teaching doesn't work for all or for most students. There are some students who can do well from a lecture-based approach, especially if it's in an area that they're interested in, but this doesn't apply to everyone. But through an interactive approach, then hopefully all students can succeed. And in some way, doesn't mean that they can all do the same things, but they can all do something that constitutes success. Okay, so let's look at some of these strategies. I put them in 3 groups for the purposes of organization today. So we'll look at some kinesthetic strategies, making connections, and communication. So when we're talking about kinesthetic strategies, there's a longer list, but I'm just mentioning some things here. Writing and drawing would be kinesthetic. Your hand is moving, and so in this way is kinesthetic. I think writing is something that often happens in lecture classes. It should. Hopefully students are note-taking. I think the quality of those notes sometimes may be of issue. But something that you might also consider is drawing. This is something that is being looked at recently in many fields. I think this is an interesting quote, that it's a novel means to design course content to incorporate kinesthetic learning, and that also that this is from multiple levels of education. We might think of children drawing. I think most of us would agree that that is an appropriate activity for children, but it is an appropriate activity for everyone, actually, and in multiple disciplines. So not just things, maybe you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe some sorts of engineers definitely need to be drawing things. But no, everybody should be, even if it's not their thing. Some people don't like to draw, but it does activate a certain part of the brain. And that this is even for undergraduate and graduate levels. So they did some studies asking students to draw what they've learned, and found that students had more comprehensive understanding of what they had been lectured about. Kinesthetic strategies can also include manipulating and reordering. So maybe you have some key terms that you'd like to review, and so you might pass out some pieces of paper, or you might just have students write down these terms on pieces of paper. You don't have to do it yourself. And then ask them maybe to work in pairs or groups, and to put these words into different groups. And then explain why they've grouped them that way. Or maybe they should put the concepts that they think are most important at the top and form a list, rather than just writing. This act of kind of physically moving things activates a different part of the brain. Something that's very simple is just changing seats. So maybe halfway through the class, you can have students get up and change groups, change partners, something like that. Brain breaks are also a great thing. A brain break is very easy. It can simply be something like, okay, everybody, let's stop, take a break, let's stand up, stretch, turn, say hello to this person, turn, say hello to that person, turn behind you. Okay, sit down. Just a simple act like that. Of course, there's many other things you can do while standing, different games. You could have everybody do the wave or something like that. It just takes a moment and kind of resets the brain, gets the blood going, and can make a big difference, especially if you are looking out at a sea of students, like looking like that. And then we're going to look more closely at mingling and wall work. So when I'm talking about mingling, I imagine something that looks like this. You may have seen this called different things, like cocktail mingle, something like that. The idea comes from, in the US and probably some other cultures, before like a dinner, a sit-down dinner event like that, there would be a cocktail mingle. And during this, you don't sit down, you walk around and you talk to different people. You don't just talk to the same people. And so you walk around and, oh, how are you? Nice to see you, blah, 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 talk for a minute. And then you go around and you talk to someone else. So in this situation, perhaps you have some questions written up on the board or on a PowerPoint. So you tell students, okay, walk around and talk to 3 different people or 5 different people about this. You might also have like a piece of paper with different questions, and they have to ask a different person each question, something like this. Getting them to move around, walking and talking, rather than just sitting at their seats. This is something you could just turn and talk to your partner, but this gets them talking to other people and moving around a bit. Okay, so we are going to try this. So we're going to do this in breakout rooms. So I'm going to put you in fairly small breakout rooms of 2 to 3 participants. I think I'm going to do 3 to 4 because I know not everybody will get into the room. After 1 minute, I will close the room. So when I close the room, you still have another minute. You'll see there's a countdown, how much time is left in the room. So you'll have about 2 minutes total in the room, and you will talk to the other people in the room. When we return to the main room, I will put us back in breakout rooms, and that way you'll go out and you'll talk to some other people. And so you'll be mingling around virtually rather than physically. Now, what will you talk about in your breakout rooms? I have some questions here. If you don't finish all of them, that's fine. This is not required. But I would like you in the rooms to share your names, where you work, what you teach. So are you a math teacher? Are you a language teacher? Is it a lecture-based class? Is it a practical class? And you just want to share this information quickly and give everyone else a chance to speak. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. If it turns out that in your breakout room, nobody ever joins you, don't panic, because we will come back and then you'll go into a new room, and chances are that there will be other people in there. But if I notice that no one's coming in, I might even move you, although the time is a bit limited since this is there. It's a mini mingle. Okay, I'm going to try 3 to 4 participants per room. We'll see how it goes. And then if I need to, I'll make the rooms a little bigger. All right, so I'll give it about 30 seconds for everyone to get in the room. Then I will activate my timer. And then when I close the room, you'll see the countdown. You don't need to leave the room. It will automatically kick you out. Okay, so the rooms are open. You can go ahead and enter, and I'll see you in roughly 2 minutes. Oh, I didn't open the rooms. Okay, now the rooms are open.
Could you stop the share for a moment?
Oh yeah, good
Then I
idea.
can see how many are.
It's always interesting to me. Some rooms like fill up like that, and like room 8.
I guess they don't, since I'm a host, I guess they don't put me in a room.
Oh yeah, that's
But I can,
interesting.
but as a host, I can join one. So I'll see who needs me to join one.
Maybe room 1, where there's only Monica. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms.
So there's a lot of people who didn't join.
Which, in my experience, always happens. Which can happen for multiple reasons.
Yeah, I do breakout rooms a lot in my conversation hubs, and everybody always joins, but I'm not sure. This is not the first time with teachers that this has happened. So maybe they're shy.
It can also be a connection activity. I know I have worked with some teachers that if they go to a breakout room, they're instantly kicked off Zoom. So could also be an issue. But no one's being forced to do anything. Although, hopefully you had a nice chat in your room. Because this is a mingle, we are going to go back into breakout rooms, and you are going to chat with some different people. And I think I'll leave the rooms the same size, because in some rooms we had completely full rooms, which is good.
But you're going to recreate.
Yeah, I'm going to recreate them.
Okay.
There were about, I think there were 2 rooms that only had 1 person in them. And then I think you joined one of them.
I went into one of them, but
Sorry if you were that
know
one
her really
person with
well, so
no
she-
one. So you had a nice chat.
So she's
Okay.
hoping to get in another group this time.
Okay, and meet some other people. So I have reconfigured the room so there should be different people. Again, you have these questions here, just briefly sharing your name, where you work, what you teach, and how you teach, getting to meet some other people. Okay, again, you'll have roughly about 2 minutes in the room. You don't need to exit when it says breakout room is closing. It will close itself. You can take advantage of the time.
If you're able, please join.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. You'll only be in there for 2 minutes at the most. Oh, whoops.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I'm hearing.
You're hearing.
Yes, ma'am. I am unmuting and talking to you. Yes,
Hi.
ma'am. I am talking to you.
Okay. What's your name? All right, we've got everyone coming back. Okay.
I am responding.
I got to meet one of my colleagues actually, but I had never met her before. So that was, or we at least haven't never talked face to face. So that was nice.
Oh, excellent. Hopefully others had similar experiences where they got to talk. And then a nice job. Some of you who were not couldn't get into the breakout rooms, use the chat. Good idea. All right. So mingling goes something like that. You can do it. I think it's very common as like a getting to know you kind of strategy, but it can be used to review content, all sorts of things. Okay. So the other thing I really like to do in the classroom to get students moving is to make use of the wall. I call this wall work. You might see this as wall walk or gallery. I like to call it wall work because I do other things besides walk. Basically, the whole concept is using the entire room, all four walls of the room, and taking advantage of that space. So you might put up different texts on the wall. You might put up different diagrams, questions, whatever content you want students to be able to look at. And then they walk around and they discuss whatever is up on the wall. They look at it, discuss it, answer questions or whatever. Or you may set it up so that they're responding to what's up on the wall. You might have them writing directly on the paper, or I've also done things with Post-its. So maybe I had some different articles or texts, and then students had maybe 3 different color like sticky papers, and put a pink one by the article you most agree with. The one that you think is you disagree with, put a yellow one. The one that you found confusing, something like this. And so getting students engaged and moving around. It's a nice way to maximize the space that you have, especially if you have, it can be hard to do with large classes. And I know some of you are working with very large groups. So something else you can do, if you're having students respond, maybe they work in a group and then one student from the group goes and responds. If the room is big enough, you can have everybody moving at once, or you may have half the group sitting and doing something while one half of the group walks around and then switch. So there are ways to deal with that. This is also a nice way, instead of making a bunch of copies or something, you can have single copies just up on the wall, something like that. So next, I want to talk about strategies that promote connection. And some of you might be wondering what I'm talking about. Basically, the problem here is that a lot of what students learn in the classroom often just kind of exists as theory. As an English teacher, I might think about grammar. Okay, these are the rules of grammar. And then students don't think about how to apply and use that grammar. But I think this is true for many other subjects as well. And so this information just kind of exists up here, and there's no real connection to students. And so there's different ways that we can promote this connection. One definite way is to activate background knowledge. This is very relevant. And in fact, so you had that poll in the beginning, and then I had my analogies kind of warm up. And these were both designed to activate background knowledge. So as mentioned earlier, students are not empty buckets. They have some stuff going on there. They don't have everything they need, but they're trying to take what they have and activate it and use it. We can also connect to personal experience. So this was also done through the poll and that warm up. You're all teachers. You have personal experience in the field that we're talking about today. And so connecting your own experience to this. A nice thing we can do, if you're not sure how to make this connection, we can always elicit opinion, asking students, well, what do you think of this? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And so we can always make a connection in that way. And then also we can think about our kind of higher level critical thinking and apply knowledge. So asking students to evaluate, to analyze, or what's becoming, I think, very big in current pedagogy is problem solving. So presenting a problem in the relevant field and asking students to come up with some sort of solution. So we'll make some connections here. What experiences have you had with kinesthetic learning or teaching? So remembering that kinesthetic learning and teaching uses some sort of movement. It can be just the hands through writing, drawing, or even if you agree, give a thumbs up. If you could disagree, give a thumbs down. Those would all come under kinesthetic learning. If you'd like to speak, feel free to raise your hand to speak, or you can give your opinions and answers in the chat. Have you had any experiences as a student with kinesthetic learning, or as a teacher, have you made use of any of these kinesthetic practices, having students move around? You may have done it unintentionally, or you may have done it thinking, okay, I'm gonna get students moving. Vicky, go ahead.
Yes, I'll share one experience because it just happened today. I'm teaching over at St. Joseph's Community College, and I was about 18 students who are there to, it's like a vocational type of school. They're learning how to be a nurse aide or a seamstress or something like that. And so they have not finished high school, so they haven't been in school for a while. So I'm teaching very, very, very beginning English. I mean, very beginning English. And it's been a while. But anyway, I've been there just a week and a half, or I guess this is the, anyway. So I was struggling with some things. And so today I decided to take this new approach. And I actually had them all get up, go out of the room. And then I sat them in different chairs. So I just had them change here, just like you just said. And what a difference it made. All of a sudden they were talking a little bit more. It was really interesting, because I mean, it wasn't all in English, of course, because they don't speak very much English, but it was so interesting for me to see that dynamic change just from changing their seats, because for the last 2 weeks they've sat by with the same person at the same desk every day.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it was really good. I
It's
didn't,
something quick and simple.
yeah, and I didn't think of it in this kinesthetic sense or anything, but I just thought I had to do something different.
Your teacher's instincts, exactly. Awesome. Thank you. Irene, go ahead. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. I don't teach English, but I teach gender, school, and community. So, you know, I kept on thinking, what do I do with this kid? So I asked the facilities person, to get me a ladder. And I put the ladder right in the center of the class. And I asked one of the girls, and I bought a lot of dusters, you know, cleaning. And I called the girls and I said, I'm instructing you, I'm telling you, go up the ladder and clean this fan. And there was total shock, you know. So I looked at them and I said, why do you have an issue? I'm telling you, are you disobeying me? So there was so much confusion. And one of them, you know, hesitatingly went up the ladder and started to clean the fan. I laughed and I said, it's okay, you can come down. And then I had this, you know, this gender issue. Why do you hesitate to climb a ladder? Because in the UK or in the West, climbing it, you know, we do it without even thinking. But when I was teaching to gender, you know, they have it in their head. They have these, that only men do these kind of work, these things, and women don't. So I thought, you know, I'm going to give them, you know, shock them into, and then I was able to teach them the title, what I'm going to teach them, like gender, school, and community, and why, you know, we need to have, you know, as teachers, we need to change our attitudes first. So I thought, you know, that was appropriate, you know, something that makes them do something rather than sit on a chair. And they loved it, you know. They kept discussing it or talking about it after.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I like how you used it as an entryway into your topic. Oh, very fascinating. Thank you. In the chat, Anita says that she incorporates art and some movement when facilitating group as well as individual sessions as a counselor. Thanks for adding that. So I think in counseling, this is something that counselors know, a way to kind of to get into the topic kind of through an outside way, kind of like what Irene was talking about. So I think this highlights how these ideas in some fields are already being used and they're finally trickling in to higher education. We see that these ideas are in other aspects of education, but we're starting to appreciate how relevant they are to all areas. Because of time, I'm just going to give a quick minute to this. Could you use any of the ideas you've seen so far in your classroom? Again, You can use the chat or raise your hand to answer this. Again, we're just looking, even if you don't answer, it's quite all right. If you are thinking about the answer, then I have achieved my purpose in activating a connection between the content and you yourself. Ah, well, yes, Vicky, I can imagine you definitely using wall work. I'm going to move on to the next slide because of time, although not before looking at these two other comments. Ah, role plays, excellent. Yes, role plays definitely require this. Excellent. Brain gym movements as energizers. So I'm imagining this where you act out or you like are doing like maybe some calisthenics. Oh, that's a great brain break is to do something like that. Oh, thanks, Anita. You're full of interesting ideas. Ah, okay. E. Harini has also used wall work and brainstorming. Excellent. Brainstorming on a wall is great too. If you've got a big piece of paper, since usually you only have one board in a room, this kind of recreates that. Oh, great. All right, we're going to move on to communicative strategies. Although, sorry, I cannot resist the chat. Oh, wall art. Oh, I like that, Irene. That is, yes, excellent. So communicative strategies, we're looking at sharing ideas, as you all have just shared ideas, collaborating. So especially like with problem solving, working together, group work, group projects or pair projects. And then also instead of collaborating, we can also debate as well, argue our ideas, which is useful in terms of talking, organizing our ideas, supporting arguments, lots of helpfulness there. Basically here, I'm talking about talking. And this, you've probably noticed, has been a theme throughout. Even when I was talking about some of the kinesthetic things, they involve talking. The mingle involves talking. They're not just moving. We had some kinesthetic activities that don't involve talking, but a lot of them do. And then when we were activating or making those connections, a lot of them were done by talking. They could be done by writing, but often this is with talking. There's a lot to be said for talking. Some people can't really clarify their ideas until they've talked about them. A lot of times people don't fully understand until they've talked about it. As teachers, you probably know this as well. You never really understood your field as well as you did when you started teaching it, right? Because this act of talking forces us to organize our ideas, consolidate them, and then put them into a coherent string of words instead of being this amorphous mass of thoughts and ideas. And this communicative aspect is a big part of what we're talking about with 21st century skills. This aspect where we need to interact with others is very important. So we're going to do one final activity. We're going to go into breakout rooms. And I have this question for you to talk about. How is this image related to today's topic? And we'll tell you there's no right answer or wrong answer. I encourage you to use your creative and critical thinking skills to come up with some sort of explanation about how this image is related to today's topic. I'm going to put us into breakout rooms, and I'm going to give us about 5 minutes in the breakout room so that you have enough time to talk. I'm going to recreate the rooms to keep it interesting. And if I see that you're in a room with nobody, I will move you because I will have enough time to move people. All right, so you have about 5 minutes to discuss how this image is related to our topic today of interactive learning. I hope you have good discussions.
Mina, are you doing the, moving the people or should I?
I am moving the people. Sorry, I just started. It's it's something I often have to do, and so I just started doing it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Let me know if you need my help.
Okay. It's so interesting how some rooms just fill up so fast.
Yeah, the first room 1 filled up, it's all full. There's one in just room 2.
All right, I'm gonna move Tom and Shannon to room 2.
Moves Lakshmi from room 3 because she's asking for help. I'll join the breakout room, but
Oh, really? Okay.
but so she's probably wanting
She's
to be,
in there with somebody else, with Dr. Tanya Grace. All right, we've got everyone coming back. So we had some very full rooms and then some quieter rooms. Hopefully you were able to have some interesting conversation. I am curious if anyone would like to share their answers. You can raise your hand to speak, or you can answer in the chat. I am curious here what you came up with. Go ahead, Irene.
At first, I didn't know what was going on, and Manish was in my group, and I've known Manish for a while. You know, we attend Vicky Ma'am's sessions on Saturdays, so I asked him, and then after I came out, so we, figured out our group. I had a really great group, So someone explained to me that it was a, one-wheeled bicycle. And then finally, I think we ended up thinking, oh, he's a magician, because we saw the little hat behind his feet, right behind his feet. And there's something yellow there. So anyway, and we were looking at the expression on the little girl and the passerbys, the people who had come to watch, and some were looking at the girl, and the girl was looking at the magician, is what we called him. But when it says 56 seconds or 30 seconds and before the chat closes. And then I looked at the question and I thought, did I do what all the students do? I forgot to think, how is this image related to today's topic? We got so busy looking at the picture, and then I went, oh, kinesthetic energy. Oh, move away from lecture method. But we didn't discuss this in the chat, in the room. So I thought, ooh.
So I would like to ask Jyotsna from our group, because she and I shared similar feelings. Jyotsna, would you feel comfortable in sharing? I really liked your take on this image.
Good evening. Yes, I'm really enjoying this session. Actually, to be honest, I'm a ex-student of St. Joseph's College for Women, and right now I'm working in St. Anne's College for Women in Visakhapatnam. It's a great privilege to be part of this great webinar session. It's really interesting to me, and I'm learning a lot from this. So to give a take in about the picture, I would like to give the glimpse that I shared was it was like a teacher who had during his or her schooling days or the college days, he had taken up all the effort to study, and then after studying, he has enlightened himself completely with a lot of knowledge, and ignited himself completely and wants to spread this knowledge, this flame of knowledge that he is having to others. But and he's taking a lot of strides to do it. It's not just he's not going in a comfortable zone, he's even going in the out of comfort zone just to try to spread the wisdom and the knowledge because of his passion to spread what he has learned. But then unfortunately, even after taking great strides, people are not willing to take this particular thing because they haven't understood the real value of wisdom or learning or education something. And this is what I find in today's scenario as a lecturer. When we find the students being very passive, not ready to take in, not very receptive to what we try to teach, we go with all the passion, but they're not willing to take it. So this is what I had shared by looking at the picture.
I see why Vicky wanted you to share that. That was awesome. Thank you very much, Jyotsna. Very cool. Thank you. I do want to go back and mention, so Irene was saying that her group didn't get to this second part because they were busy analyzing what is going on in this photo. And I want to just say that that's not a failure at all. So although her group did not answer they didn't get that far, probably with more time they would have, but that they were connecting to this. They were actively learning, they were analyzing the picture. Basically, they were problem solving and trying to figure out what is going on here as their way to get up to the next part. Alice sees this, Dr. Alice sees this as an innovative way of teaching what the teacher brought in class to catch attention. Very good. Eliciting inquiry. I feel the person with the flame in his hand is trying to capture the attention of students. Yes, so I do want to say that there are many interpretations, and but that I am not advocating that you bring burning flames into your classroom, although I'm sure that will catch your students' attention. And then we might wonder, okay, so this teacher or this guy's trying to elicit attention. Is it teacher-centered?
Yes.
All right, just, oh, I see something else in the chat. Oh, he wants to make an attention. Go ahead, Vicky.
Oh, no, was it teacher-centered? Yes, I thought it was teacher-centered. The picture.
Yes. We see them, they do look active and attentive, but yes, is it a two-way street? We don't know.
They look like they're just watching and laughing and observing to me, yeah. Nobody's even going to help him up.
I do wonder, honestly, I don't know what I found this picture. I looked in Pixabay for interesting images, and this was an interesting image.
Yeah, and I thought he was falling, as we often do when we're trying something new. And so I also had that kind of idea going through my head, but
many interpretations. So to sum up what we've been talking about today, basically, if your students are passive, they are not learning effectively. They need to be active participants in their learning. We can't expect them to just sit by and just absorb knowledge. They need to want it. They need to actively get it, and they need to know what to do with it. There are many strategies to activate our students. There are mental activities and there are physical activities. And the ones I talked about are not the only one, just some ideas I was throwing out there that I have used successfully. But that using such strategies will lead to positive outcomes in a variety of ways. Most importantly, learning that is more transferable, more effective, more practical. And even just from the most, I don't know, basic selfish teachers aspect, a class that's more fun to teach. A lecture class is very difficult to put together. Of course, if you've been teaching for years, you already have your lectures set.
is it my internet or Mina's?
That's one.
Vicky, I think it's Mina's internet. Because
Okay,
I can hear you.
I do
fine,
sometimes have trouble, but I always look at everybody else. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think Mina, you're frozen. Can you hear us?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
so why don't I go ahead and do my summary or whatever it is that Indians always do at the end, which I always think is so nice. So I've been taking a few notes, and I'll just briefly go over some of my biggest takeaways, and want you all, maybe she's going to rejoin us. I want you all to think about your questions. Hopefully she'll be back for question and answers. So, okay. So anyway, Mina started out by just talking to us about, what teaching is like, she's back. I thought I would just do my summary and then we would do questions. Did you have any more slides or anything, Mina?
I guess if I'm going to be dropped, that would be the time to be dropped. I just will briefly just share references. I can always share this slide after, and just thank everyone. You can always contact me. I'm happy to share the presentation or anything else. My email is there.
Thank you. So are you
That was quick. I didn't even get a chance to get her email. Ooh.
Sorry.
You have mine, Irene, so, but there it is. Mina G 422@gmail.com. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll give you a couple moments to think of your questions. I'll go ahead and summarize, and then I will also put the link for the feedback form, which you need to fill out each night. So I will put the link in the chat in just a moment. Anyway, yes, Mina talked about what teaching is like and what it really hopefully is not, and should become dynamic, working both ways, but also working in different directions, where there is energy, where there's new ideas. And she, I don't know if it was her originally who talked about the triangle, but certainly Anita hooked on that idea of a triangle. And then no matter which way it's going, there's always stability there. That was kind of a neat analogy. And when she talked about the rationale, of course, her main rationale is that students are not empty buckets that need to be filled. There needs to be this idea of active listening, and the subset of active listening is even moving. So there needs to be mental and physical activity going on. And this interactive approach supports students' interests, their motivation, and she said something about the transfer of knowledge into the real world, which I thought was really good, because that's what we're trying to prepare them for, the real world, right? So this idea of interaction is going to help us do that. Whereas lecture, of course, is very low cognition. She said on Bloom's taxonomy, it's just the lower two ideas of remembering and understanding. And our goals, of course, are to get the students to want to learn and to know what to do and to understand its relevance. In other words, and teachers, we're never going to work ourselves out of a job, but we still want to have the students learn how to learn. And that's really important. Then, of course, the three strategies, the kinesthetics, making connections, and communication. She gave ideas for all of those. And the bottom line was to have it learner-centered, that learners need to be active participants in whatever it is that we're teaching, however it is that we're teaching. So that's my brief summary. Thank you, Mina. We are open now for questions and answers. You can raise your hand, use your little reaction thing, or you can unmute and ask your question, or you can write it in the chat. I didn't look in the chat to see if there was any. There's many thank yous. I don't think there's any questions yet. Reen has a question.
Actually, two questions. One is, I would like, to get the slide on the references so I can read further, because I found Mina's lecture really fascinating,
I can actually send that to her. I have your email address.
And the other question I have is, when I teach, and I've attended your lectures because I'm always looking for ideas how to get students motivated. And I found that even when we do activities or, for example, now I'm teaching environment and I'm trying to do something like a TED talk on environment, but I just find that it's so difficult to motivate students. So I don't know where I'm going wrong. So perhaps, and I'm thinking from after Mina's, so one is, the question is, what could Mina suggest to me that I could make it interesting? I've got some ideas from today's session, but I thought, she could help me a little bit. How can I get them to get this? I've tried, sending them TED Talks. I've tried. The only thing I haven't tried is actually doing one TED Talk, like taking an example and doing one in class. So is that where I'm going wrong?
And also I want to suggest that you come the next 2 days, if I might give a plug for the rest of the webinar, because I know that Tom and Shannon are going to have a lot of practical things too, but go ahead, Mina.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. But yeah, I would say, so making sure that your students, I would start with that kind of activating background knowledge, activating interest, to see if your students are interested in this at all. And if they're not, kind of motivating them to be, and then you might have them looking at these TED Talks or doing the TED Talks yourself, maybe for the purpose of them creating their own little TED Talks. If they see that they're going to be using this information to do something, it can help motivate them more. And I'm not suggesting that necessarily you can take up class time for these TED Talks, but they could be making video TED Talks themselves. Or, you know, taking these ideas and by activating their background information too, I didn't mention this, you're also doing a bit of a formative assessment. You see where your students' interests lie, how much knowledge they do have. And so that way you can better tailor the rest of what you're doing to kind of meet them where they're at, instead of saying, this is the information I have and now I will just dump it on them. So just some considerations, I think, in that way, I think will go a long way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
so
also
much.
the idea of TED Eds instead of actual TED Talks. They're shorter, 4 to 5 minutes long.
Mhm.
And probably you can find some on some environmental issues, but I really like that idea. Then they can think about doing one of their own. That's good. And I know Shannon probably has an idea and she's dying to say it because she shared it with me once, but you have to wait till tomorrow. No, we'll let that be the
Absolutely.
teaser
I
because
will.
she did a great
I will. Thank you, Mina.
exercise
I
last
didn't do
term,
the
and I had
assessment.
her
I'll
share
do
it
that.
with me. So you have to come back, Irene.
I will, Vicky.
Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and put the feedback form. It is 7:30, so we'll stay a few minutes if there's more questions, but I'm going to put the feedback form in the chat now for you all to access. And Tom wrote, they can or Tom or Shannon, I'm not sure who, can sometimes feel remote and distant for students unfamiliar with the context.
Mhm.
Did you catch that, Irene? Irene?
Yeah, can I just say something there?
Yeah.
I think the key there is to personalize and localize it for the student's own experience, because TED Talks are kind of global and they're not always accessible in terms of the content, the location, the context where they're spoken and where they're situated. And if we localize it to the student's own experience and to where they live, to issues they're familiar with, to their own world, which might not reach out as much as a TED Talk, then it would help a lot, I think. So yeah, personalizing and localizing is a strategy.
Good point.
Good point. Thank you. Thank you. Lots of ideas. I'm lucky.
Anyone else have a question for Mina? I'm not sure if she's coming back the next 2 days or not, or if she's going to try to get over jet lag, but Mina, would you like to say any closing remarks?
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to meet these participants. And although this is a bit of a, it's hard to kind of get out of the lecture kind of thing with Zoom. The interactivity is limited. We do our best, but I did feel it was hopefully a triangle. But I did get some great ideas from you all, so it was very enjoyable. And I will do my best to be here tomorrow. It was not a problem to wake up today. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes, great. And so the couple that you see in one of the little squares, Shannon and Tom, are going to be with us the next couple of days also. And I've worked with Shannon, and anyway, they're both very experienced, and I know they're going to have a lot to offer us that can be used in some different settings and some different ideas. Tom, Shannon, do you want to say anything? Teaser.
Teaser, wow. Yeah, well, just to say thank you, Mina, for a great webinar and a great experience. I think tomorrow, I think what we'll be offering is a nice continuation of what we were talking about this evening, with maybe some very practical ideas for your lecture rooms, for the classroom, for the lecture classrooms. So we're really looking forward to building on what's been said tonight or today. Sorry, Mina, you're in a different time.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, same ditto for myself. Thank you, Mina. And you really set us up nicely. I mean, we didn't plan together all that much, but it's amazing how much actually intersects and how our plan builds on what you've said. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. And thanks, Vicky, for being our wonderful host.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all for coming. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening, and same link. Please fill out the feedback form. And as Anita wrote, Mina, you were awesome. It was very helpful for all of us. I'll change her words. And some of the ideas that you shared were really takeaways that she'll be able to incorporate into her own work. She's the school psychologist and language center psychologist. No. One of our leadership team at the language center. And so I don't know though, I have planned a warm-up on Friday that included speed networking. So I'm not sure, maybe I need to think of another idea. A lot of you didn't join your breakout rooms, and I have to, I maybe you'll say something in the feedback form about that. But we don't want you to feel obligated to do anything except learn and absorb and try new things. So please come back and enjoy another day tomorrow. Thank you all. Farewell.